Portrait retouching used to be an arcane process in Photoshop, using a lot of filters and also a lot of manual effort. We've had skin smoothing plugins for a while, and now there are AI tools that help speed up the process. Reblum is a new AI-powered app that simplifies portrait retouching and makes the process incredibly fast. It works with Adobe Lightroom, Photoshop, and Capture One. You can also use it as a standalone app. So let's take a look at Reblum with some portraits. All right, I decided I wanted to start off with a few different types of portraits. So this one obviously is an older lady. I've got a portrait with a couple in here, and I'm going to kind of bounce around probably some things that are not necessarily glamour or fashion, although we might touch on that, but kind of like your everyday lifestyle portraits. And I think that's what most portrait photographers who are doing this are looking for. They want to take photos of people that they know, and then they want to get rid of the imperfections. So that's where I think Reblum is really an excellent app. So let me show you. Inside of Lightroom, you can get to this by going to Photo, Edit In, and then you go down your list, however you have. And in this case, I find Reblum right here. Now, you can also use this as a standalone application and just drag and drop photos into it. It works with RAW files. I've used it with Nikon RAW files. It'll work with JPEGs and other words. So if you're used to working with Lightroom, you may be familiar with this. It'll ask you, how do you want to edit the photo? So we're still in Lightroom. You can edit the original, make a copy. I'm going to edit the original, but I'm not going to commit it. So let's go ahead and click on that. And you can see that Lightroom is preparing. It launched Reblum. And this is what you see. It brings up the application user interface. And that's it. It is really extremely simple. So let me expand this a little bit larger. So we're going to go into full screen mode. And you have very few options. So there's the style, whether it's natural, fashion, which is kind of more the glossy look that you might think about for magazines. And then you've got options down here to dial back the intensity and the texture. So over here, you can see we have a little eyeball. That is to show us our before and after. So by default, it goes for natural. And I got to say that for most lifestyle portraits, this is the one that I prefer. So let me click on this. That shows us our original image. So you can see on her face, that's the image we captured. There's some wrinkles in there. And then they kind of smooth out. So I'm going to draw your attention to her forehead right here and probably a little bit under her eyes. Now, we have not eliminated all the wrinkles, nor do we want to. What we want to do is reduce them. So this is where we were before. So you can see on her forehead, there's a few lines in there, and we'll just take those right out. Also, down on her chin in this area, you can also look on the person's chest if that's exposed as well. What's happening here is this is processing the skin. You'll notice that it's not processing the eyes, it's not doing lips, it is skin retouching. So let's go back. There's our before. There's our after. So it's cleaned up and reduced some lines over here, on her nose, down here. And I think that makes for a fresher looking photo. In other words, you're trying to capture the person as you would speak to them in person. When you get a still image, it's very easy to concentrate on all of those lines or skin imperfections. And all you're doing with the natural version is just kind of reducing them rather than eliminating them. Now, if we go to fashion look, it'll think for a moment here. And then it's changed it again. I think what we're seeing here is probably not appropriate for someone who's a little bit older. So if you see how the skin looks over here and down there, it's fresh off of a facelift, in my opinion. But let's go back and take a look. You can see those are where the wrinkles were, and then you can see how it smoothed that out. I think that's a bit too much for someone her age. And don't get me wrong, I don't know exactly how old she is, but I expect to see a little bit more. I don't expect to see skin quite this smooth on someone this age. I like the natural look better. Now you can also zoom in if you want to and get a little closer. And you can see the wrinkles much more clearly here. And this is one of the problems with still photography is like the light catches everything. And when you're standing in front of them, that's not really how they look. That's more how you perceive them. And that's kind of the result that I want. So I'm going to cancel this and select another photo. All right, so we've got this photo of another couple. I wanted to take a look at how does Reblum handle, male and female or multiple people in the same photograph. So let's go back and we'll edit this and then just launch the application. All right, and that's it. So let's kind of zoom in on their faces a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in and then you can just kind of drag that down. So we've got, again, our natural look. It may be difficult to see. There's a little white box over here in the preview that's showing you what we're actually focusing on. And you can drag that around and see what you want to see. I think this looks good. I think, again, this is a couple that's in their 40s, maybe 50s. I think it really works well for them. So if I click this off, you can see, again, some of the texture, some of the wrinkles come back. Now we can start off with natural, and if we want to, we can dial back the texture, and you can see as I move this, it's very faint, so I'll try and do it slowly and dial it back. And you'll see that the texture comes back in his face and a little bit in hers as well. So I want to bring this all the way back up. Now I want to bring back general, and you can see what happens there as I do that. It's very subtle, it's very faint, but it does give you an opportunity that if you think, okay, maybe it's just a little too much, and this will also work on the fashion as well, you can just kind of pull this back halfway and see if that works better. So let's look at our before and after. So this is before, and this is after. So it's a very subtle change here since I dialed it back. If I bring the intensity back up and we look at our before and after. So there's our before, and there's our after. So you can see much more of a change. Now, if we go with fashion, it'll think for a moment, and then it'll come back and give us a new version of this. And again, for people this age, I think that's a bit too much. So it's looking, in my opinion, it's looking a little bit plastic on their faces. So if I bring this to look at the before, you can see there's a real change. And these are not bad-looking people. These are handsome people. And I think that just kind of, for this couple, is the wrong choice. I like, for most of the lifestyle photos, I like the natural one. I think that works best. There are going to be times when you do want to do the fashion one, and that's probably going to be for things where you're doing those kind of styled portraits rather than a lifestyle portrait. So in other words, if you're doing a glamour or a fashion type of look that you might consider magazine worthy, that's where I think this fashion look is going to have the most sense. All right, so let's cancel this and I'll find another photograph. All right, I chose this one in particular because there are some spots down here. There's definitely some skin issues going on. It's an unretouched photo. And we'll see what Reblum does with this. And I think it's kind of interesting, some of the choices that it makes of what it will go ahead and kind of eliminate versus soften, and then things that it won't touch. So one of the reasons I like this photo is because not only are we looking at her face, but also there's some room down on her chest, you know, basically other skin areas besides her face. So we're on the natural. And if you take a look in this area down here where my mouse is, kind of beneath this little line where she's tied things up, I'm going to look at before, and you can see there are a couple of small skin spots. And you can also look at the texture of her skin. Then I release it, and you can see it smoothed the skin a little bit, and it's kind of eliminated some of those spots. But over here, she's got a couple of moles. It hasn't taken that off. So there's before, there's after. So it's cleared up definitely on her skin down here. Now let's take a look closer on her face. So let's look here. You can see there's a little bit of texture and a little bit of shadows in some places that it just kind of cleans up. I noticed like in her chin and her forehead. So let's go look at before. It's not that there's anything bad or wrong. It's just that with the flash that's on her, the light is highlighting some imperfections that you probably wouldn't notice. So as I toggle this on and off, and if you look at her chin and her throat, you can kind of see how some of those things are just being softened a bit. And the same is true on her forehead and on her cheek. I think this is a much better looking portrait of her. It looks like her, and it doesn't look over the top. Now, again, you can go ahead and you can pull down general, you can pull down intensity, and you can see how those look. And then you can come over to the fashion look. This is another one where fashion, I'm not quite certain that it's the right look for her. It has definitely smoothed out her skin quite a bit, and I think it's not a bad look. I think her age is not a problem. It's really the lighting. And this is a case where I might go with a fashion look because of her age and because of how it's really cleaned up her skin. And this could be just a great portrait. So I think that is kind of the difference between when you want to go for a fashion look versus a natural look. I think either one will do. So here's our before. There's our fashion look. And there's our natural look. Now, once it's processed, both the natural and fashion, you can kind of go back and forth between them very easily to see what the differences are. So that's another thing that I like about this, is that you can kind of decide what is the right processing for the given photo that you're using. All right, let's cancel this and go find another photo. All right, so this one is just a test shot. You can see where I've got my little gray card there. She's holding that up so I can kind of get my test. Now, I haven't edited this one in Lightroom. This is a Nikon RAW file. So let's go ahead and see how this works in Reblum. And there we go. So she already had really great skin because she had her makeup on for this. So if we come down here to hold this, you can see under her eyes, it's kind of changed some of the lighting and the shadows. Actually, in the white of her eyes, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So you can see that there's a little bit of shadow underneath her eyes and on her eye over here. Just a little bit of difference in the whitening. So there's basically some shadow elimination. And you can see there's definitely some skin smoothing going on here. Like I said, she's in makeup. She's already presented for camera for a photo shoot. That's why there's not a drastic change. Plus, she's very young here. Now, if we go for the fashion look, that's where I'm thinking that this is someone whose face where you probably do want that almost porcelain kind of look. There's still texture in there. You haven't lost texture in her face. You can still see the pores. So it's not that plastic looking thing. But if we come back to our before, you can see basically there's some shadows and a few slight imperfections. So if you notice in this area of her cheek under her eye, I'm going to look at before, there's a couple of things there, very minor ones, and now they're gone. So this is the kind of thing that if you just really want to save yourself some time doing your post-processing for a fashion or that kind of portrait look, this thing works within a few seconds rather than having to go there manually removing the different spots and smoothing out lines and so forth. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how that looks on someone who's camera-ready model and just how quickly it can take care of things. Again, you can go back and forth between the natural and the fashion look. You can pull down some of these sliders to see if you might want to soften it up a bit. But you still got texture over here. You still got her pores. But it's really eliminating the imperfections. All right, let's find one more. Okay, this one is an unretouched RAW file. So we'll do the same thing. We'll go ahead and launch this into Reblum, sorry. All right, so again, we've got a camera-ready model. She's got her makeup on. I'm going to zoom in to look at her face. And this is the natural look, and here we are before. You can see that a little bit of shadow underneath her eyes, a little bit of enhancement with that little area underneath her eyes. Because I'm kind of toggling on and off for you to try and take a look. And also on her forehead and her cheeks, we haven't lost her texture. We just kind of improved it a little bit. And it did this so incredibly quickly. So we're not enhancing her eyes. We're not really dealing with the whites of her eyes. We're not doing anything with her teeth or her lipstick and makeup that way. This is primarily a skin retouching tool that just simply works in seconds. Matter of fact, while I was just talking that it only takes seconds, you can see that it's gone ahead and moved it from natural to fashion. So let's take a look at our before and after. And it's a bit more noticeable now here underneath her hair. And this is something that's going to be really fine to work with. If you're going in here with Photoshop or with Lightroom, trying to fix the area that's underneath hair, you can see that it did it nicely without messing up the hair, but it's affected the skin. And I thought that is something I think is really worth paying attention to, because trying to work underneath hair on a flat image is a tricky thing to do. So this is really using the AI power to find out what's hair, what's skin, and only working on the things that you wanted to work on. So that's our on and off between our flat out of the right out of the camera photo and the fashion look. Again, we'll look at natural and fashion. All right, so let me cancel out of this, and I'll take you over to the Reblum website. We'll answer a couple of questions about it. All right, I just want to let you know what to expect with this. So it's available for Windows and also available for Mac. I'm obviously working on a Mac. You can see a couple of different types of photos and a couple of different types of processing. So there's a style, there's natural and fashion. So you can kind of move the slider over and see before and after. Then you can move it over to fashion if you want to and see how that changes it. So that gives you an idea with a few other photos that they have over here. So there's got their original raw, and I'm not even clicking to hold this down. You can just move your cursor back and forth. So what they're promising is one-click processing. So instant one-click results delivered in seconds, no additional steps required. That's what I'm experiencing too. I've been using this app for a while now. I'm very pleased and impressed with it. Now, something else I didn't demonstrate, but I want you to notice is that you can process batches, 100 or 1,000 photos. So if you've got a batch of photos that you want to do the same kind of processing, maybe natural or maybe fashion, from a photo shoot that you've done, again, you can do this in here with this app. This part I like is this works without an internet connection. You're not sending anything up to the cloud, being processed there and coming back. So you've got your privacy here. Also, that means that if you're working on a laptop, you're on an airplane, you're in a shop someplace and you don't have Wi-Fi connected or you don't want to connect to Wi-Fi, you can still do your work. Maybe if you're out on a portrait location doing the shoots, you could do some quick processing right there without having to be online. And this is not blurring. This is doing enhancement. The original texture and natural appearance of skin keeps retained. As I said, you can still see the pores. It's not like it's blurring it and then it becomes so plastic that nothing happens. And as high a resolution as needed. So if you've got a newer camera with really a lot of megapixels in it, this can handle it. So it works with Adobe Lightroom Classic or Photoshop. It's also working with Capture One. You've got the two different styles, as I mentioned. There is the natural, which mostly is my preference, but there's also the fashion look. And you don't really need anything. Any computer with just a 3 gigabyte video card. So let's take a look at that. Their computer requirements for Windows users, a GeForce 970 graphics card or newer, or a Radeon 470 graphics card or newer. For Mac OS, you could get a Radeon 450. In my case, I'm using an M1 iMac. So this is not the powerful, fancy one. It's not an M2 or M3. It's not the Pro or Max. I'm using the basic M1, and I'm getting really fast performance out of this. So I've got 16 gigs of RAM on this iMac. So it works quickly and easily. Right, so what's different about this one? Well, instead of having multiple plugins or complex steps, it's streamlined one click. Now, you may still use other tools for different enhancements, but if you're looking for skin retouching, this is going to be one of the fastest things you can use. You can get started with a 7-day free trial, Windows or Mac. You don't have to put in your credit card. You can try it out for 7 days. And it'll go down a few other questions like how to access it. So in Photoshop, it's a filter. In Lightroom Classic, you saw me from Photo Edit In. I don't use Capture One, but the details are here. Now, let me show you the pricing of it for this. And this, I think, is unique in itself. You can get this a month at a time if you want to. So maybe you're only doing portraits for a while, and then you don't do portraits for several months again. For a little under $25 a month, you can get access. So you've got the 7-day free trial. But once that expires, $24.90 a month, and then when it runs out, if you're not doing portrait retouching and you don't need to keep it, then you can let that expire and then get another month later on when you do. 1 year is $16.59 per month. A lifetime deal, which is what I'm using right now, is $249. You get the upgrades that'll come out, and basically you pay once, use it forever. That's my current plan. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you haven't heard of Reblum before, now you've heard of it, take a look. I will have a link in the description below, but it is basically williambeam.com/Reblum, R-E-B-L-U-M. Very simple, very easy to understand. I think it's very affordable. It's also very fast for what it does. And if you're into portrait photography, this is a great tool to use. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this helped you out somewhat. If you got any comments or questions, please let me know, and I'll see you again in the next video.